to intercept US citizens for which they're concerned that there may need to be some kind of judicial oversight, and then simply pass on the information, and vice versa. So how much of the vast hoovering apparatus that the National Security Agency has constructed is in fact being accessed by DSD? Well, we know that a lot of it's a spooky reminder. We know that a lot of information has been pulled across, according to the report by Philip Dorling in the Sydney. So let us first understand what is going on. These revelations by Snowden, if we go back 2 weeks, they weren't there. We lived in that same world, and we didn't understand what world we were living in. How many other things exist in the world right now that we don't know about? Well, of course, statistically, there must be many more revelations of a much vaster scale. The true history which exists and underpins the nature of our current civilization. So we must first start to reveal what is actually going on. We must have full and proper transparent reporting on the behavior of ASIO and DSD and the other intelligence organizations in Australia. What are the nature of their sharing relationships with the United States? What information are they collecting on Australians? The ASIO and the DSD must be susceptible to the Freedom of Information Act. Even the CIA in the United States is susceptible to the Freedom of Information Act. Of course, it finds many excuses to avoid responding to the Freedom of Information Act, such as national security exemptions or cannot confirm or deny, and so on. But it is simply not acceptable to ring-fence off an organization like ASIO, which has increased nearly 4 times in size in the last 8 years, to ring-fence it off and create a land where transparency does not apply, where there can be no scrutiny to its activities, when we know it's associated with a system of unprecedented abuse and unprecedented danger. ASIO and DSD must be susceptible to Freedom of Information Act requests. It must be possible for us as Australians to understand what the Australian government is doing and how it is behaving, how it is dispensing its authority. Similarly, where privacy is violated, it must be done so under the stringent conditions. There must be an audit trail. It cannot be the case that without warrants, hundreds of thousands of Australians are intercepted per year. That is not acceptable. The Wikileaks party, if it is elected to government, will insist that all interceptions of Australians take place under a judicial basis. And those authorities intercepting Australians must report twice yearly to Parliament about their activities, and they must be susceptible to the Freedom of Information Act. And it's not enough to simply say this in legislation. There must be political will to defend and expose. We see legislation everywhere. We also see that legislation is not enforced and it is not carried out. It is not my intent to go into politics into Australia, to sit there and constantly write laws that are not enforced. Rather, the Australian Parliament is a platform to erect and gain certain discussions in the Australian populace. And it is the political will that is revealed by those discussions which enforce discipline by the Australian government. Okay. So in closing and asking for questions, I would like to direct you to something that many people have asked me, which is about civic courage. When I was young, I believed that intelligence was the rare commodity. If only people had intelligence, they could see further. And having seen further, they could understand. And everything else would come out from that. But yes, systems are hidden by complexity and need intelligence to cut through them. They need idealized forms, they need simplification, so we can understand them. They're also hidden, however, by secrecy. And no amount of intelligence alone will cut through secrecy. What is needed to cut through secrecy is some form of civic courage. And men like Mr. Snowden have shown that extreme degree of civic courage. But when you think about Mr. Snowden and you say, I couldn't possibly do that, how could I do that? I wouldn't even know where to begin to do that. I don't know that I could achieve anything important, and the risks seem profound. I have children that need to be protected. I have students that I need to care for. How could I simply leap off a bridge like that? Well, of course, you should never leap off a bridge. What you must do is experiment. And I feel the same fears as everyone else, as everyone in this room. I feel those fears, and perhaps even more, because I've had such experience with the dark side of a number of states. But if we look at some simple aspects of fear, for example, if you go out at night to collect your mail in the post office box and it's dark, you move with great trepidation and slowly because it's dark. In the daytime, you move with speed and confidence. What's the difference? It's the same post office box. It's probably the same mail. The only difference is that you know more and can see more and adjust the speed of your approach according to your knowledge. That's the only difference. So by carefully considering and understanding a situation, you can act in a smart manner, which gives the appearance of fearlessness. But it's not fearlessness. It's just understanding the phenomena and moving carefully. And never taking on fear as a prejudice. Always challenging the perception of fear through understanding. That's where the courage comes in. The courage comes in to question, is this activity that everyone says is fearful, that everyone says is dangerous, that everyone says may lead to your destruction or your alienation, or businesses taking action against you, or governments taking action against you, is that true? Or is that just perception? Because the only mechanism that abusive organizations like the Pentagon, or like the National Security Agency, or like those abusive elements of ASIO need is the perception of fear, the perception of risk. That is all they need in order to conduct themselves. And they are in the business of instilling fear into people in order to get away with more. That is their business. Instill fear in order to force people to do things. So we must always test every prejudice we have about risks. What is a risk and what is an opportunity? To always balance these two together. Don't leap off a bridge. That would be absurd. But leap off a small stool and see if that works. And then something a bit higher. And as you develop confidence in yourself and an understanding of the environment in which you operate, the political environment, the intelligence environment, the social environment, you can proceed with ever greater confidence in what you're doing. This situation for me, which of course to the outside world looks extremely difficult, and I'll not say that it doesn't have its downside, but actually we are very confident of winning. I came to this embassy as part of a broader strategy for Wikileaks, the strategy to gain recognition for what we had been through, to gain the support of Latin America, which we have done. I found when I was in solitary confinement, when I was in the darkest time that I have had in the last few years, stuck in the basement of Wandsworth prison here in the UK, locked in completely at all times. Well, I considered carefully, had I assessed the risks correctly? Had I in fact had a reverse prejudice, that in fact the risks were much more than I thought? No. In fact, I thought to myself, no, the way the situation is going, it is actually helpful to our cause for me to be in prison for a while, not forever, but for a small while. And I could see that a time would come that I would be released. And similarly here, I can see the situation is very useful for projecting those principles that I believe in. And every day that we are able to project our principles into the world, every day that we are able to operate in such a way where we follow our beliefs, our true beliefs, not what we want other people to think, not what would look cool to others, but what we truly believe. Every day that we follow that is a day that has been truly lived. And we only live once. So in fact, it is the easiest thing in the world. It is the most pleasing thing in the world to follow your principles in this way. And I am in the luxurious position where I'm able to follow my principles. There are certain difficulties, as there are in everything that we do. But don't be scared of following your principles. Always test, test, and test to see whether you're scared of an untrue prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian, for your address. We don't have a lot of time left, so 3 questions. I'm going to ask Vicky to bring up the bowl. And what I'm going to ask you for the 3, unlike what I said earlier, is if you could come down to the microphone here, then Julian will be able to see you in London. So I'm going to read out the 3. It's green, 26D. So if you could make your way down now. 03F and 12F. Have we got 3? Could you put up your hand if there's, because I think I'm only seeing 1 person coming down at the moment, so maybe I need to. Oh, we've got 2? And the 3rd chickening out. Okay, I think we need to do another draw. Great. 18D. So if you could speak here into the microphone. Oh, you go first.
Hello, Julian. I'm curious in listening to what you were discussing about Australian politicians in particular being sucked up into this system through forces a bit beyond them.
Yes.
I'm very curious to hear what you think the role of these companies, these big tech firms, have in upholding the value of WikiLeaks, what incentive they have to do so, and also what tools they have at their disposal to repress these encroachments. Thank you.